Welcome to Innovator Café, the entrepreneur go-to, with your host, attorney Dave Stevens. Through each episode, Dave and his guests provide resources and assurances to build a company growth roadmap. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the website stevenslawgroup.com. Now here's the host of Innovator Café, Dave Stevens.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Innovator Cafe. Good to see you. Today, our guest is Parker Williams. He's the CEO of Lightbeam or Lightbeam Stories. And we're going to learn a lot about media and something new he's doing around media and positive stories. But first, let's learn a little bit more about who Parker Williams is. Parker, tell us about yourself.
Hey Dave, how are you? Well, I've been in the media business for some time now. I had a dream of being a filmmaker. I loved movies growing up. And so I ended up in film school. Even though I try to act like that was intentional. I went to school, political science, and they started a film program while I was there. And lucky for me, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it was a boom town for filmmaking at the time. The incentives were there. And I got to work on incredible projects. Dawson's Creek was being filmed there. And because the program was so new, they were bringing in, the professors were coming right off a set into class. And what that led to was us getting to go to sets for these feature films and Screen Gym Studios and being around these actors, and famous people were all around. And at the time we had John Travolta walking around, or Vince Vaughn, or whatever. It was big stars around everywhere we went. And we called it Wilmywood. And so that was sort of the kickoff. And just like most people going into the film business, I took a first job in finance, which was probably not the best move, but I learned very quickly that I needed to be on the creative side of things and work. So I ended up getting a job in sports and entertainment. I went to work for an agency called Wasserman out of LA. And Wasserman at the time was being run by a guy who still runs it, Casey Wasserman. Casey was the grandson of Lou Wasserman. If you look up Lou, there was a movie made about him called The Last Great Hollywood Mogul. And then Casey was trying to follow in his grandfather's footsteps and become a sports mogul. And he's done an excellent job of that. He's acquired some incredible businesses over the years, and Wasserman over time has become a major player in LA in the sports entertainment world. For me, I got to watch this. I had a front row seat for watching this company come together, and I got to just see some incredible work. I got to see the sort of birth of stadium naming rights. Wasserman was very new into that, or they were trailblazing that sort of ground, and seeing these stadiums come in and recognizing that brands wanted to have their name. Every major brand wanted to be involved with sports one way or another, and putting their name in the stadium. All these stadiums used to have great names, and then they all turned into brand name stadiums. And sports across the board, brands started to find ways into the entertainment. I thought that was so cool. I'm like, these brands are positioning themselves with that. And from Wasserman, I got recruited to go to another agency and start a new agency. And one of the investors at that agency happened to be the chairman of the Fox affiliate board. And the company that he ran was a big media conglomerate. They owned a ton of affiliate stations across the U.S. In fact, at the time, I think they owned the most Fox affiliate stations, but they also owned CBS and NBC. And the guy that was running it, real veteran of the industry, understood television, understood how he still is a major leader in the media world. But he wanted to make some sports programs. And I had been in the sports world. I'd been behind the scenes. I knew a lot of athletes. And so he taught me how to produce television. He gave me an opportunity to produce a few shows. I loved it. I took to it from day one. It was pretty fun. The first day I showed up on set, everybody's standing around. I'm sitting here standing around, looking around, waiting to get started. And I realized everybody's looking at me to get it started. And that's when I became a producer. I was like, oh, we got to go. So I left there and I was like, I'm a producer now. And I think that's how most people become producers. They just decide that's what they want to be. They say they're producers, and then you're kind of a producer. So I got into television making. And this was sort of when reality TV was starting to take off, low cost TV, the house flipping shows were just getting going. And Pawn Stars, things like that. All those shows were big. And I started learning how to distribute television. And so I was out selling these shows I was making. I was directing the shows, but these were not masterpieces. These were behind the scenes reality shows. And all these creative people were working with me. I realized I'm not a director. I'm a producer. I like trying to direct it. I need these people with creative visions to tell these stories better than me. But I was very passionate about what we were doing and what we were putting together. And I ended up launching a business around that. And the original idea for the business was, let's produce television shows and distribute them. I have this network. And that's what we did. And we started making some shows. This was also the same time where the traditional ad spot was starting to fade out a little bit. And I started talking about brand storytelling and branded content. And I had not heard that before. I'm not claiming to have created the word branded content, but me saying it out loud was the first time I'd heard it. And I was telling everyone branded content, branded content, branded content. And my timing was great. At the time, a number of brands were eating it up. And before too long, I had an incredible roster of some of the most recognizable brands in the world hiring my company. I started to grow. This company grew across the US. We were opening offices all across the US in the major hubs. We had offices and studios. We were producing content everywhere globally. We were doing incredible work. We had an incredible reputation. And what we started doing was innovative productions. I really, really liked, we got into live streaming first, pre-Netflix, pre-streaming, but we were live streaming. And that was great. The biggest brands in the world were coming to us to help them with that. Red Bull, which has built a whole entire industry around that. We were there at the beginning and helped them figure that out and how to get internet out into the middle of nowhere and live stream these crazy sporting events that no one had ever seen before. Verizon came to us. They were broadcasting the Indy 500. They wanted to do something innovative. We figured out how to put cameras in the car and live stream so you could choose to watch your favorite driver's point of view from an IndyCar race. And that seems so commonplace now, but it was very groundbreaking at the time. And
at the beginning of your career, technologically, it wasn't even available. It wasn't even possible.
Well, there was, yeah. I mean, we came up, you had these huge media companies coming to us and saying, how can you do this? And luckily I had this engineer that was working for me that would stay up 24 hours straight to solve these problems. And he made me look good, but at least I was standing there saying, we got to figure this out. We got to figure this out. I tried to support where I could. I don't know how to plug wires in to make them all work, but we figured out how to do that. We continued innovating. We got into virtual reality. We did a lot of world first with that, won a bunch of awards. We did augmented reality. That was a really interesting space. I think it's still an interesting space, but what I realized about halfway through that was I was building a company that was not doing what I originally set out to do, which was storytelling. We were out innovating productions. We were out. I don't even really know. The company kind of got away from me in a sense, in that we had tons of business. It was great business, and I loved that, but I was not being fulfilled creatively. And I felt like I was building a company that really was not mine anymore. And so I had a chance to leave. And one of the things I was really proud of is while I was running that company, I started a nonprofit. And that nonprofit, that foundation, we were providing these production services to other nonprofits because so many nonprofits would come to us. They'd say, hey, can you send a camera guy out or whatever? And I'd tell them the price, and they would kind of look at us like, we're a nonprofit.
You don't have any money.
I felt exactly. And I felt really bad turning that business away because a lot of it would be really interesting. It would be stuff that I would care about or people on the team would care about. And we wanted to help them raise money. And so we launched this foundation, and we started doing this great storytelling with these nonprofits. And a lot of these nonprofits also often had celebrities attached or whatever it was, or athletes. And we would tell these stories. We'd make these great stories. We'd have a premiere. They would raise some money, and then the story would live on their website. It would have nowhere to go. And it wouldn't find an audience organically. I don't think we were consuming as much content then now through TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and everything, but it just wasn't finding a home. And that had always stuck with me. And then during the pandemic, I ended up exiting that business. I had an opportunity to step away. I felt like the timing was right. And I wanted to reset. I needed a reset. I was on the road all the time, bouncing between the different studios. I was burning out bad. And I was like, you know what, this isn't really worth the burnout. I think I've taken this company as far as it can go as this, and I don't want to run a content agency. I want to tell stories. And so that's really what happened. And
This goes back to your origin. You're a storyteller.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And
the whole time you're like this frustrated storyteller bouncing from these awesome opportunities, but not satisfying your core beliefs.
Well, you're exactly right, Dave. I would be in the middle. We would be doing a production for some kind of brand, and I'm trying to use that to create a movie or whatever it was, and I realized like I'm trying to force this one thing that I care about into this other box. And my wife helped me come to that conclusion. She helped me realize I was not really pursuing the passion that I originally set out to do. Mm-hmm. And during the pandemic, I was doing some consulting work. We were all sort of, I like to say I was in the basement. We were in the midst of moving in New York, and we found ourselves homeless when everything shut down. And so we went and stayed with my wife's family and briefly lived in the basement, which I was, I'm in the basement down there stirring my witch's brew, trying to figure out what to do next. And I started consulting and started connecting with people virtually, a lot like we are now. And I met Stephanie Sherris, and Stephanie was talking about positive media, and I was telling her about my foundation and production, and said, why don't we put a good film out into the world every day? The world needs it right now. We're all bummed out. We're all anxious.
Especially at the time. No kidding.
Yeah, we were anxious. We're stressed out. Everyone is sort of living in a basement somewhere, I guess. And so I loved this, and naturally, I immediately start trying to turn it into more. Said, oh well, why don't we do this, and why don't we do that? And before too long, we were launching Lightbeam and getting Lightbeam off the ground. So that's sort of how we got there. We started this one thing of let's get this story out every day, and then it was, wow, the world needs more than just 5 minutes of good every day. I think we can really start to put it in a lot of different places. And I haven't told one person what we're doing not one person hasn't said, man, the world could really use this right now. And yeah, we're past the pandemic, sort of, I guess, still a lot of repercussions from that, but we're past that time in our life. Doesn't seem like all of a sudden it's roses everywhere though. Everywhere you look, you're being bombarded with negativity. And so
lots of brand new sources of angst for people, no doubt about it.
Everywhere you look. And I feel for some of the kids that have been born into this, that are growing up in a world full of angst, because as adults we all carry it. And so anyway, we wanted to come up with a business and a company that could solve that problem. Mm-hmm. And that's why Lightbeam exists now. And we're trying to create a healthier humanity, and we're trying to give individuals a way to be entertained through positive entertainment. We call it elevated inspiration. So we go out and we'll take these stories that have traditionally been the sign off on a news segment, and let's figure out how to make that entertaining versus let's
make it a segment.
Yeah, let's make it fun. Let's make a movie around it. Let's tell this great story, whatever it may be. But instead of just being relegated to 5 minutes at the end of 25 minutes of horrible news, you get this 5-minute story about the fire department saving a cat out of the tree. Let's go get to know these firefighters and what's going on in their life and why they wanted to become a firefighter. They're, more than just this cat they saved, which does feel good. It is great to see the cat getting out of the tree and the fireman and everyone that helped them. But why don't we go out and learn who these people are?
Who doesn't want to hear the story inside the story, really?
Exactly. So that's what we're up to. And it's a very ambitious company. I think we have, we think we can be a major player. We think that this type of media, the world needs more of it. We're not sort of religiously motivated. We're not politically motivated. We're not trying to be formulaic. Nothing wrong with Hallmark, but that makes people feel good. I would say that's positive entertainment, but that's not what we're doing either. We're working with storytellers that are telling non-formulaic stories that have a unique perspective, that might have a way of telling a story about something that you've never really seen before. You might meet people that are not in your day to day. You might get to know someone that you might otherwise never have seen before. I like to think that, empathy is created through experience and getting to know people. But if you can't have the experience of meeting someone, the next best thing is content. The next best thing is learning their story and learning it through the eyes of a great storyteller. So.
Right. What would you learn from a person if you met them in person, right? And you look at a real story that's being told that focuses on the person and not just these circumstances, right? You can answer those questions, make them feel like you actually know this person, right? Give us an example of one.
Well, so one of the things that we've been excited about recently is youth sports, and this might be a subject that you care a little bit about, Dave, as well. So
I might even border on fanaticism, but go ahead.
Well, let's talk about this because it's been a really fun project, and working with you on this project has been a lot of fun, Dave. So I'm glad that you asked me because this is such a fun thing to talk about. But your passion for youth sports sort of triggered us to look into this and saying, well, if Dave is passionate, Dave has these kids playing sports, and every parent that has kids that are sports age, they're super passionate about it. Who's more passionate than your kids? You're going to be the most passionate about your kids. But it has been infected with a lot of toxicity. The pressure that these kids are dealing with is really challenging. And this is kids all over. And a lot of these families maybe that are in rougher neighborhoods are putting pressure on their children for the sports to be their way out, or parents who are just super competitive, who maybe weren't great athletes growing up for some reason are trying to relive it through their kids.
Those are the worst ones I've seen.
Yeah. So we have found there's so many stories of different types of people in these youth sports, and sports in general. We all know how they are. It's a sort of something we can all collectively get behind as a team. It's a shared experience when you're all cheering for the same team. It should be a shared experience. I think sometimes these kids, it's not so much the kids' parents are sometimes focused on the individual experience with the kids. Right. But I think, and I know you believe this as well, is that it should be a collective experience for these kids. Learning to be on a team is great. Or if it's a solo sport like tennis or golf, learning to compartmentalize the noise and go out there and perform without this pressure to perform, just learning to perform. So we've discovered stories of people within that sport. So that's the framework of the idea. But then it's, okay, let's go meet some of these kids and let's meet the people that are inspiring them. Let's meet the people that are maybe helping these kids rediscover their passion for the sports. Maybe they've lost their passion for the sports or whatever it is. So that's one example. But we've met teachers in the Middle East who really are not supposed to be teaching other people anything, and they've found a way to hold class and educate a younger generation with what they're allowed to do. And maybe they're breaking the rules to do it, or maybe they're putting their own safety in danger, but they feel like it's important to educate these people. We're all carrying around something. We all have a story. We're all going through something. And I think the core of storytelling is, okay, what are we going through? Most stories have a wonderful ending to them. But usually to get to that great ending, you have to have the beginning of the story and then the middle of the story and then the end. And in a lot of cases now, the storytelling, we were just hearing the end of the story. Or maybe we just see the beginning of it. And what we wanted to do is make sure that to really get to know someone, to really feel that empathy through or feel that empathy for someone through storytelling, you really need to go on the whole journey. Where did they start? What did they overcome? And now you're cheering for that happy ending for them. And you want to see that. And really the science behind that says you see this happy ending for someone else. The science, it gets the juices flowing in your brain. And you're going to be inspired after that as well. And you carry that with you. When you've seen the whole story, it releases different chemicals in your brain than just the dopamine hit from that last just catching the end of the story, that gets the dopamine. We want more of that. So we go for more in that. And that's part of the social media issue that we deal with today. But when you get that whole story, it lasts all day, and it gets you feeling good and inspired, and really contributes to making you a better person.
Yeah, I've noticed, I'm not sure how to articulate this, but when the challenge and reward of sport is really the juice. That's what kids love. They don't realize it, but when you actually challenge them, you give them something to do, you train them, and as you teach them how to perform, that reward is so much tastier. And you just said something that was really poignant. You just said that they're feeling pressured to perform rather than learning how to perform. They're like getting, I call it being potty trained at gunpoint. That might be a little harsh, but that's a lot of the way.
I think that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we need to learn. Humans we are incredible creatures, and survival instinct is not that different than our ability to figure out how to perform. We're going to solve it. We're going most of the time. There's plenty of people out there that may not be motivated, or there may be some depression or something like that, where they've kind of given up and they don't want to perform. But most of us wake up every day and want to give our best. We want that. We want to give our best to the day, and different things throughout the day chip away at that. A lot of it is content. The amount of content we consume all day long, it chips away. And the amount of negative content we're consuming right now, by the end of the day, sometimes you're back to being anxious, stressed out, and that enthusiasm you woke up with in the morning has worn down to that angst and stress. And I know I got a little off topic here, but one of the things that Lightbeam is doing with these stories and talking about the pressure to perform through content, I firmly believe that we are what we watch. That it isn't what we consume really contributes to who we become. And so I've thought a lot about a media diet, and what a media diet looks like. And it is okay to watch the thriller that might be a little bit stressful, and that's good because that puts you on edge and maybe get your adrenaline going a little bit. Sure. And it's fun and it's exciting. But you can't only watch that, or everywhere you go, you're always going to be on edge and your adrenaline's always going to be going, and you're going to be one of those sort of jittery people that's always looking behind your shoulder for that.
Eating nothing but ice cream. That's right.
Exactly. Right. Eating nothing but ice cream. So if all you watch is sports, then everything you consume, everything you see outside of sports is black and white, winner, loser. It's that, or if all you're watching is Hallmark all the time, you're not gonna understand what reality is like. You're gonna be living in another bubble. So to me, it's very much make sure that you consume, just like with you want your proteins and your vegetables and your starches, and making sure you don't get too much of one group, or you get enough protein and you counter that with enough vegetable or fruits. I think media is exactly the same way. We're just consuming it through our eyes, and what we consume through our eyes is affecting how our brain regulates. And so we are trying to contribute to this healthier media diet. I know I got a little bit away from the pressure to perform, but that is exactly what we're trying to do as a company is put more of that good stuff out there so that it's easier to consume a healthier media diet. The world has changed there's so many more healthier food options now. We've learned so much about what we're putting into our bodies, and we're just now starting to scratch the surface of what we're consuming through our eyes and what's getting into our brain. And we want to be a leader in putting the good stuff out there so that people can take that in, instead of just all the toxic news that they're consuming, scrolling their phones all day long.
Yeah, well, we could do a little preview of what's coming, with our new baseball documentary coming up.
Yeah, let's talk about it, Dave.
A nice way to call it my passion, but I coached baseball for my kids, and this has grown into something that is really about getting even with the system and really fixing this system. Because I've noticed that, like you were just saying, when you could read lots of sports, or what you consume is what you become. And if you really are just a win-lose, if that's really your perspective, then you go to your kid's soccer game and it's all about winning, right? And the kids are out there and they're just lost. They just want to learn how to play and be around each other. My kids, they want to hang out with their buddies and challenge each other, right? Challenge, reward kind of thing, right? Win or lose. I will tell you, my oldest, he was probably the only kid at the lineup that wasn't crying at the end of a game that they happen to lose. These kids, I mean, really were pouring, crying, and their parents were not much happier, right?
Yeah.
And they bring this to the game. And talk about how this, how the story that we're telling has kind of shined a light on that, and maybe shown a new way to approach it.
Well, you look at it, talk about these stories and not knowing people. The story, your story, in the film we're doing together, Ken, which is he's just an absolutely amazing person, and the kid that he's working with, outside of baseball, there's really no reason those two would have ever crossed paths,
No,
and
no.
so that alone is, I think, incredible. That the way sports bring different type. For me, I played football. In the locker room, I'm walking around and looking at all the different backgrounds of everyone in this locker room together. And there is no reason that we would ever get together outside of this team. And the effect that's had on me my entire life has been amazing. And it's given me a perspective. It's probably why I'm doing this business now, because you look at it and you say, well, I know there's people out there living a different life than me, because I have shared a particular part of my life with them. But Ken and the kid he's working with, watching Ken re-inspire him is just incredible. And I don't want to give too much away, but the kid, he's really struggling with being just the challenges that kids deal with at that age, and bullying, distractions, stress, pressure, anxiety, everything that kids
Just wanting to fit in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to fit in. Not to mention when you're other, that age is tough, because some kids are much better at the sports than others. They've either developed faster and they're more athletic. Some kids are just more athletic. I mean, obviously there's people that are great at sports. That's one thing we probably know. Dave, I don't know your sports background, but knowing mine, I was okay. It was very obvious to me there were people that were a much higher level athlete than I was. And
No doubt.
I like to go out and play with those people. I like to challenge myself with them, but it was, most of the time they just ended up making me look like an inferior athlete, but I still got a lot out of that. And so with Ken, anyway, the story that our film is telling, which is, just, you learn about Ken, you learn who this guy is, who, again, how did he end up in this place? And he's wondering the same thing a lot of times. And I know you've had conversations with him outside of rolling the cameras, where, what am I doing with these kids? And then, you're like, that's exactly what you're doing with the kids, Ken. You're there to be yourself around them. And so it's just one of those stories where it's not a complicated story. It's just one person being probably a brief moment in their life that he'll never forget. When he grows up, he'll probably be on a podcast or whatever form of media we're consuming 20 or 30 years from now, saying, back when I was a kid, I was really having this tough time with baseball, and this guy Ken stepped in and made my life better for a season, and it's really stuck with me. And we all have those people, and those are the people, the Ken Bradleys of the world are the people we want to feature. The world needs them. We all have it in us to be one of those people. And if we can find those people, put them on camera, tell their story in a compelling way, a way that makes people want to watch it. So doing it with really good storytellers, great directors that get passionate about the stories, that can come out there and make it engaging. So when you fire it up on your laptop or your TV screen, or we have ambitions to be on the big screen as well. You go out there and you sit down and you just watch people overcome something, or you watch others be inspired. It just really, it's special. I love, after I watch a good movie, or even this story that we're talking about with Ken, I feel good. I've watched it probably, I've had to watch it a lot of times as we've gone through the edit process and the post-production. Every single time I watch it, I feel better after I've watched this thing. So,
and I've known him for years, and I've been watching these edits, and I see something different every time I watch it. And maybe it's that I reflect or feel something different. I don't really know, but it really brings out, a lot of inspiration, a lot of reflection for me personally, right?
well, one thing, Dave, I know you're a storyteller, and I can see why you appreciate this so much, because you tell a great story. When you got us excited about Ken telling his story, at least from your perspective, and I know how much you appreciate hearing his story and seeing it, and the inspiration that it's causing for the kids in his world.
No doubt, no doubt. And with my experience, as I've told you before, I haven't had the best experience with Little League. I mean, I think a lot of people see this. I feel like I've seen more than most, but then I talk to another coach, I find out, oh no, those stories are all over the place. I'm up to here with them, right? And Ken Bradley is really unique. So he's from Sacramento. It's about 3 hours away from here, from Los Gatos, and it couldn't be any more different, right? He's in his 60s. He's African American. He has come down. He was invited down by a family to Los Gatos to coach the kids. He coaches now all of the elite all-star players in the entire area, and he doesn't even have enough time for all of them, right? And when he came into this neighborhood, it's a whitey white neighborhood, and they were asking questions. What's he doing here? Even in this day and age, which is just, I mean, it's shocking, but it shouldn't be too surprising. And what the biggest gift that I see that he has many gifts that he gives, and he's constantly giving it away. If nothing else, these privileged white kids, this is the first black face that they're ever going to see. And it's going to be so positive and so inspiring. If they walk away with nothing else, they might walk away with just a completely different attitude or perspective that they get from their parents, right? That they have this openness, just like you're saying. You're in a place where you had no business ever meeting all these different people or them meeting you. But
Yeah.
what did you walk away with? All those different perspectives, because you had this common goal, even if it's to win that one game, to form a team, right? Rather than having the pressure to perform, you guys had each other, and you were learning how to perform, and you're inspiring each other. I think a lot of coaches miss that, don't they? They miss that. They need to inspire them to work together as a team, not just take orders.
Well, now that we're talking about this, I feel like part of Lightbeam's, I know this is the Innovator Café, part of our innovation is that I don't want to go as far as saying that we're providing coaching, but the type of content that we're putting out into the world is designed to do something like what Ken Bradley is doing for those kids that he's out there. And so we're sharing Ken Bradley with everyone. And I'm so thankful that he's willing to say, yes, you can put cameras and follow me around and document this piece of history, or this time period in my life where I'm working with these kids. Because we start rolling cameras. We knew Ken was impressive. We knew some of the kids that he was working with were interesting, and they're going to be like most kids, dealing with some things. You don't know where the story is sometimes. And
right.
It was one day, an hour, or maybe not even that long, before you realize you're like, oh, there is a story here, and we can't wait to tell it. And luckily, we worked with a great storyteller that was able to go in and craft that beginning, middle, and end. And I think anyone who watches this film is going to feel exactly the emotion that we're talking about at the end of it. And maybe that day, maybe somebody's going to watch that film and be inspired. So that's what it's all about for us.
Yeah, maybe rather than turning on the 5 o'clock news, they'll turn this on.
That's the idea. That's the idea. Or if they watch the news, spend a little time with this afterwards, so that the latest bombings or crazy politician, whatever the crazy politicians have said, that consume some of this as well, and remember that the world is a beautiful place. The world is not nearly as bad as our media diets would lead us to believe, as our media consumption would have us everything you watch is doom and gloom, or not everything, but there's so much doom and gloom in what we consume. And so you might think the world is this, but there's really so much beauty out there that you just got to look for it. And we're trying to make it easier to find.
It's an excellent perspective, really. And when you look at it too, I mean, you think of a way you wish you could multiply a Ken Bradley, wish you could make more of them. And in a big way, you're really doing that. I mean, if people are really inspired by him, genuinely inspired by them, and they really reflect on that, they're going to want to be like him. So now you're creating more Ken Bradleys in remote places, even in the world, who sees this. And that's a unique thing.
Yeah, that's the idea. You know, when we originally set out these 5-minute films we were going to release every day, we're going to feature a beamer, a light beamer, and and a person like Ken, and we wanted everyone to get 5 minutes a day with a person like him that you can take in. We wanted to duplicate these people and spread them out. And again, I think we're casting a much wider net now. We're trying to duplicate them in many different ways, because I think throughout the day, I consume content on my phone. I consume it on my laptop. I consume it on my iPad. I consume it on my television. On a good week, I've made it to the movies. I've watched a movie there. You walk out down the street, you're getting video billboards pushed in your face. You go to the airport, there's screens everywhere. So we wanted to make sure. So when I talk about getting more ambitious, so we got to be on all those screens. We have to be providing something in all of these places, because we want to hit the biggest audiences possible. And the best way to do that is find people where they are. And like the airport, for instance, we're working with a company that that has a bunch of the screens at the airport. What better place to have positive media than the airport? It's a high stress environment. We're all rushing to get from the gate to the baggage claim, or to make our connection, or whatever it is. We're all stressed out. And if you could just have, even in this particular case, now we are doing a longer form show, but we're trying to put it together in a way where even if you just catch a couple of minutes of it, while you're standing there waiting on your group to be called to board, you're going to get on that plane even feeling a little better. And maybe you'll sit down, you'll look at the person next to you, and instead of worrying about whose arm deserves the armrest space, you're saying, maybe I'll just give it to that person today, because I don't know what's been going on in their life, and maybe they need that armrest more than I do today. And so it's just those little things that I think we can add to that, and just a little bit here and there, I think will make this world a better place for everybody.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Getting positive stories out there, and not even to be too corny. I mean, they see these stories and they realize, wait a minute, I'm not just watching this CNN outtake, nothing against CNN, but any of these medias, right? Where, the bad news travels faster, and you pick up something positive, and maybe you'll stop and just reflect for just a moment. And you're right, whether it's you're sharing the armrest, or the next person in line, or there's an older person that's having trouble carrying a bag. If it just somehow teaches any one person empathy, I mean, it could completely change things. And these small pebbles, they roll downhill, right? And they get momentum. And you never know what you're going to do. You might inspire people 3 people removed just because of one thing that you did.
I love it. I mean, it can really be a movement, and it can be a small movement that starts as the pebble and gets downhill. And by the time it's downhill, it's picked up enough along the way to be a boulder. And we think about this stuff all the time. It's what we spend our days doing. How do we get this out there to the world? How do we push that rock down the hill? What is the way to get it started? And it takes the right people, it takes the right stories, it takes the right people to tell those stories. So I'm glad you didn't ask me much about tech, and haven't asked me too much about tech, but I will share, as a company, we're trying to do things a little bit differently than what they've been done before. There's a moment right now where there's cracks in the media industry. There's cracks. The way that we've consumed media over the years is changing rapidly. it changes every day. The legacy companies are having a very difficult time keeping up. They're launching things, they're sunsetting things. They can't figure out where to put their libraries. They're testing things here, they're testing things there. For us, starting from this point has opened up an opportunity for us to do things differently. We're able to come into the world, come into the market and say, all right, we've got a studio here. We're going to create our own stories. We're going to acquire stories. We're going to build channels that we own and operate and fill those channels full of good stories. And maybe we're pulling those stories from other places. And we're going to partner with people that also have channels. And we're going to take our stories and put them there. And we're going to take advantage of the evolution, the technology. I guess the closest thing we are to a tech company is we use technology to get our stories out to the world. And like Netflix calls itself a tech company. It's part of the big tech. Netflix is they're a media company. Don't let them fool you. They say they're a tech company. And for a while, streaming felt like technology. Now streaming feels like electricity or whatever. I mean, it's part of the fabric now, but
yeah.
So it's sort of transformed from tech company to media company, but they're the only ones that have this figured out right now. Netflix is the only player that has it figured out. And I believe that if we can come in and take advantage of that crack, that window of opportunity, build this company based on how content is being consumed now and where it's headed, make compelling, entertaining, elevated, but positive stories, that we can really be a world-changing media company. I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart, that this company is positioned to make the world a better place. And I know that might sound a little corny, Dave, talking about corny, but I
was ambitious. That's for sure.
It is great. Ambitious. If it wasn't, I had a great company before this. I didn't think I could change the world with that company. I thought I could maybe provide a decent lifestyle for myself and the people that worked for that company. Yeah. I think I can, if I do this correct, hopefully can provide a good lifestyle for myself and my family and the people that work for this company, but also contribute to society in a positive way. And that's everyone on this team. Stephanie. Stephanie feels the same way. And Stephanie has a wonderful vision and ideas for what positive media can be. We've all thought of it one way for so long. And I think our biggest innovation is thinking of positive media as entertainment. I mean, that we could get into the innovations of how we're distributing content and the partnerships and things like that. Mm-hmm. But looking at positive media as entertainment, not just the vegetables, not just eating your vegetables, but as also the steak, as also the potatoes, as also the pizza, of that diet, is just like, it's why I wake up in the morning. And I just, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what this company becomes. I'm excited for this company because I just know what we're doing is important. I think the world needs it. And I'm so happy to, with our film project, to be working with people like you that understand the value of these stories and getting them out there and the passion that you have. And I'm really happy that we've had a chance to talk about it a little bit today.
Yeah, I'm feeling like, in talking to you is so inspirational, and Stephanie, to me personally. And it could be really the first antidote to negative news. I mean, really, if you give these bite-sized counteractions to, the latest news, bad news sells. Bad news travels fast. Imagine if you could prove to the world and prove to the corporations, that, hey, positive news, not only does it travel, it travels fast and it's sustainable, right? Negative news, people can't wait to stop listening to it, right? And it has you're right, it chips away like everything else. It just chips away at your moods and your disposition and the way
at your soul. It just hammers at your soul.
It really does. And I will tell you, Ken Bradley, he trains my kids in baseball. My boys are, 12 and 14 now. I will tell you, just out of a 1-hour training session with him, they don't just learn some skills. They walk away standing taller. They feel better about themselves. How many coaches do that? How many coaches could do that? Every one of them could do that. Every coach could do that. My kids walk away, feeling stronger, being taller. If they have struggles at school, you know what? There's a baseball lesson waiting after school. I'm about to play a game and I'm going to show them what I just learned from Ken Bradley. All of this is going on, right? You could do this with just stories, just to inspire people. Even in people who are not mobile, who can't get around, they don't have different types of opportunities. You can put stories in them and they could look at their own life and see, how can they make their story brighter? How can they make another person's story brighter? That's really what's so fulfilling to me, helping other people. And that sounds corny, but I'll tell you, there's nothing like helping people solve one of their deepest problems, something that's really weighing them down. You'll never have a better friend when it's all over, but the fulfillment of helping them with that it's just immeasurable.
Yeah. Well, I could not agree more with what you're saying. And it's something we all have to work on it. And we're not all, we are wired for self-preservation. And we get better at it as we go. I think there are the few exceptions that just walk around and everything they do makes everything around them better. But most of us have to work really, really hard at that. And so I want to show the world more of those people, what they're doing, tell their stories, and just do it in a way where it just hits the biggest audience. And so, yeah, that's it. That's what we're doing. And thank you for supporting it. Thanks for talking to us. Thanks for talking to me about it today. I could go on and on and on. I know we need to wrap up, but I could go on
too, especially when you start going into sports. Again, I border on fanaticism, but what I love about what you're doing is that it's platform that can take this positive story. It's really the solution, right? I mean, to me, as a lawyer, it's all about problem solving. Lawyers are the best problem solvers in the world, and that's why people come to us, right? Often their problems they're practically crawling in here. They're so immense that by the point you have to get a lawyer, you're pretty deep, right? But one thing I've noticed is that everybody has the opportunity to be a problem solver. People come to me with problems that are not legal or otherwise. They just have problems and they can't seem to swim out of them. Like, oh my gosh. But if you could learn to understand and get deep into their problem, really understand what they're going through, often what they need is just, sometimes they just need a sounding board so they can listen to themselves. But if you give them positive examples, like the Ken Bradleys and these different documentaries, problem solution, right? They learn, wow, they learn how to solve problems. Not many people learn that. Not many people, you don't learn that in public schools necessarily. You don't learn that unless you're actually specifically trained to solve specific problems. Put a story out there, like your upcoming documentary, and there's like problem is a solution. In fact, it's all over that thing. And you're like, oh my God, that's just amazing. I can apply that here, right?
Yeah,
so inspiring.
It is. Well, I'm not sure what to leave you with here, but I want to leave you with something positive. I think
great.
It's always been, if it bleeds, it leads. We all love watching the train wreck. But if we could just spend a little bit of time paying attention to what we're consuming, I think your personal mental health will improve. Your well-being will improve. You will contribute more to society. If you spend your day consuming negativity, you're going to be a negative person. But if you spend your day consuming this positivity, take it in. You don't even have to put it out, but if you take it in, you can't help but put it out. So just try it. Like, spend that. Watch what you consume one day and say, what did I watch in that made me feel good? And I think you'll realize it's not a lot. It's not a lot, but the moments that you do watch something that makes you feel good will really stand out, and you'll want more of it. And
it's nourishing, isn't it?
It's much better than being addicted to the dopamine hit, that quick hit that we're all addicted to. I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it from time to time as well. But anyway, that's what we're out doing, and wish us luck, I guess, too, because I think what we're doing we do talk to people, and it is that, positive media. Okay. Like the end of the news segment. Awesome. You're going to build a whole company around 2 minutes of news media. Now we're going to change the way people think about it. And that's really what we're setting out to do.
That's the vision. That's the
That's the
vision,
vision.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey,
And good luck
Parker,
with the Innovator Cafe. I'm excited for this, Dave. I'm excited.
stay tuned for more.
Yeah, I'm excited for what you're doing. I think this is in line with what we're doing. You're sharing people's stories and the advice they can give and what people have done. So good luck with Innovator Cafe as well. I think this is a really cool podcast you're putting together.
Thank you, Parker, and thanks so much for being on today. You've been a great inspiration.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
You've been tuning into Innovator Cafe, the entrepreneur go-to, with your host, attorney Dave Stevens. You can find more episodes on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the website, stevenslawgroup.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.